From Nietzsche's tears to a split soul. On January 3rd, 1889, in Turin, Friedrich Nietzsche stepped out of his home. He might have been on a walk or heading somewhere. What he intended to do that day no longer matters. What happened would change him forever. He saw a coachman beating a horse mercilessly for refusing to move. Nietzsche rushed forward, threw his arms around the horse's neck, and burst into tears. Witnesses pulled him away, and he collapsed in silence for 2 days before whispering his last coherent words to his mother. "Mother, I am stupid." He remained insane for the final decade of his life. Why did this moment, crying for a beaten horse, break him? Nietzsche once said Dostoyevsky is the only psychologist from whom I have anything to learn. If you've read Dostoyevsky's Crime and Punishment, you understand why. That exact scene of the horse appears in Raskolnikov's dream, an echo from literature that shattered Nietzsche's mind. It wasn't just the cruelty to the animal. It was the unbearable recognition of suffering and guilt, a mirror held up to the human soul. Today, let us walk into that dream in the novel that shaped the modern conscience. Raskolnikov, the split soul. We meet a young man, Raskolnikov, a dropout from university trapped between an educated mind and a destitute life in St. Petersburg. He cannot bear to return to manual labor, nor can he afford to continue studying. His pride, eroded by poverty, leaves his imagination untouched. And from that imagination, a crime is born. He hatches a plan to murder a pawnbroker, an old cruel woman he views as a louse. He believes her death will liberate countless lives. Here arises his infamous theory that humanity is divided into 2 types: ordinary people who obey, and the extraordinary, who have the right to transgress. If he has to step over a corpse or wade through blood, he can do so if the outcome benefits humanity, Raskolnikov believes. But where is the line? And can any man cross it without consequence? These ideas weren't invented in a vacuum. Raskolnikov is the literary child of 19th century Russian radicalism, infused with a twisted sense of Darwinian logic and Napoleonic grandeur. He doesn't kill out of necessity alone. He kills to prove a theory, to test his own identity. From thought to action, the murder. One of the most chilling chapters in literature unfolds as Raskolnikov creeps into the pawnbroker's home. The silence is suffocating. The axe is hidden beneath his coat. With trembling hands, he delivers the fatal blow. Then, unexpectedly, her sister Lizaveta enters. Innocent, gentle, and he kills her too. This second murder is crucial. The first was rationalized, calculated. The second is chaos. It shatters Raskolnikov's illusion of control. Now, he is not a hero or an ideologue, just a man who has committed 2 brutal killings. Poverty as punishment. The novel is not just about one crime. It is a meditation on suffering. Dostoyevsky introduces Marmeladov, a drunken civil servant whose daughter Sonia sells her body to feed their starving family. In his drunken lament, he says, "To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's." Sonia doesn't excuse her actions. She neither blames her family nor society. Her pain becomes sacrifice, an act of love without self-justification. Poverty, Dostoyevsky tells us, isn't just economic. It's spiritual. The poor aren't guilty because they are poor. They are guilty because survival often demands betrayal of the self. Marmeladov's voice cracks with shame and longing. To be poor is not a vice, but to be utterly destitute. That is a crime. It's a world where virtue is a luxury, and moral clarity is a burden the poor can rarely afford. The hero's dilemma: can good justify evil? Raskolnikov doesn't kill just to escape poverty. He wants to prove he's extraordinary, capable of doing evil for a greater good. But after the act, the real punishment begins. Not from the law, but from within. His conscience devours him. His mental torment, fever, hallucinations, paranoia is Dostoyevsky's portrait of a soul at war with itself. As one character warns, taking a life for a good cause, that's the most dangerous idea. When one feels no guilt, that's when they are lost. Raskolnikov's internal monologue becomes a battlefield. At moments, he stands tall, invoking Napoleon. At others, he breaks down. Is it possible that I really will take an axe and strike her on the head, split her skull open? He starts hallucinating. He sees blood in dreams. He hears voices. He pushes away his mother and sister, those who love him most. And above all, he becomes haunted by Sonia's eyes, full of sorrow, but never judgment. From revolution to redemption. Dostoyevsky knew this torment well. In his youth, he joined a radical group to reform Russia. Arrested, sentenced to death, he stood before a firing squad, only to be pardoned at the last second. Exiled to Siberia for years, he came out changed. The dream of changing society gave way to the recognition of the human soul's complexity. Evil, he realized, isn't always external. It lives within us. Sonia represents a quiet faith that accepts suffering not as weakness, but as strength. She tells Raskolnikov to bow to the earth he defiled, to confess and begin again. He resists, clinging to pride, but her love breaks through. And yet, even after he's imprisoned, Raskolnikov whispers, "Crime. What crime? I simply killed a vicious old woman. That's not a crime." He still isn't sure. This is Dostoyevsky's brilliance, not just showing us sin, but refusing to let us escape its implications. The split within us all. Raskolnikov, whose name comes from the Russian word for split, embodies the fracture in all of us, a mind full of ideals, a heart torn by guilt, a revolutionary who can't escape the prison of his own conscience. He is Dostoyevsky's reflection. The author himself once believed in violent revolution as a path to justice. But after years in prison and exile, he emerged with a deeper, more tragic understanding of human nature. That no amount of ideology can cleanse a soul unwilling to face its own darkness. As Zweig said of Dostoyevsky, in no soul is the conflict between belief and doubt, love and cruelty, God and nothingness more vivid. We read Crime and Punishment, not for its crime, nor its punishment, but for its questions. What is justice? Can we forgive ourselves? Must redemption come through suffering? Dostoyevsky doesn't answer. He makes us wrestle. And perhaps, like Nietzsche, we weep. Not for a horse, not for Raskolnikov, but for ourselves. So I leave you with this, from the brothers Karamazov. Love a man even in his sin, for that is the semblance of divine love. Let us not rush to condemn, but to understand. Not to justify, but to reflect. Love. Forgive. Pray. And keep reading. Because literature, at its best, does not comfort. It confronts. If this journey moved you, share it. Comment with your thoughts. Do you believe redemption must come through pain? Subscribe to the channel for more explorations into literature that shape the world. Each week, we dive deep into the minds of the greatest authors, seeking not only what they wrote, but why it still matters. Keep searching, keep questioning, and most of all, keep reading.